Hey guys, this is my 1986 Yamaha FG445 in tobacco brown. Being a 1986, it has the Dove insignia on the headstock, so it's a pretty rare guitar. I bought it off a Faceplant about 6 months ago or so, and I'm going to keep it for a while, so I decided why not restring it left-handed. So I did. I had an extra left-handed nut, but I'm needing this for another project. And the one thing I miss about being a left-handed guitarist is having a right-handed guitar around. That way, someone comes over, they can play it. I played inverted for the first couple of years that I played, so I'm used to reversing all the chords and that, and I like to keep in practice of it with it. So why not switch it back now while we get a chance? I want this nut for another project, as I say, the left-handed one, so I still have the right-handed nut that came with it, and originally it'll be easier to sell if it was a right-handed guitar. So that's where we're going today, off to the bench. So we're gonna forgo all the measurements and that because we're removing the nut and switching it to a different one. We don't need to do a setup now. We're gonna need it once we flip it over. Now, because we're not absolutely positive that we're going to be changing the strings, whenever you're doing a setup or anything like that, you always loosen the skinny strings first. That because you're going to take a lot of pressure off these big heavy strings, that's going to affect the pressure on the skinny strings. So, as I say, always loosen the skinny strings first. Even though we're probably changing these strings, I do it anyways, just because you get into the habit of loosening the skinny strings first, okay? And I often see people who are changing the strings, they just take them all, they take a set of cutters and cut them there. Don't do that, you're just making more waste. Have the strings removed all in one piece. That way there's a lot less waste. And then always count to make sure you still got 6 strings. Gonna make a little coil out of them, wind it up to the curly cues, pigtails, and basically thread them through each other so that you only have one small amount of waste. Try and make them as compact as possible. Take them back to the guitar store that you buy your strings at. Tell them that you want them to recycle it. If they say they don't, shame them into it. It's only a good thing to do. So this is a floating nut, as you can tell, because it just was sitting there. But we'll just take it out for now. And there was a little spacer in here. I made a little spacer of tinfoil compressed because it's going to be a good solid base. I needed just a little bit of gap when I put this here one in there. It was slightly different. The other one I doubt is going to need it, but we're going to look at that when we get to it. Now, what we want to do with all the strings removed is a good basic cleaning. But we're going to start out with getting out flashlight and our little mirror, our little dental tools, and we're going to have a look inside, see what we find. And so we take our flashlight, set it down in there gently. Going to point it up towards the bottom of the neck and everything. Take our little inspection tool and take a look around and see what we see in there. Everything seems fairly regular, pretty clean. There's the serial number telling me it was August 19th of 1986 that this came off the line, and it was the 193rd of its type. Now we basically are just checking around to see if we see anything loose hanging. Looking for dirt, you know, if you got a lot of dust in there. Make sure all the braces are solid. Nothing loose. Of course we know that because we've been playing it all this along, so then we're going to look across the other end. All the walls are good. Let's check the bottom of the bridge. There's a bit of loose wood beside each of those holes, but it's probably been there since 1986 because, well, people just don't go doing this all the time. Back to the peg, strap peg in the base. It's also a good time to look around the walls and see if there's any numbers on there, like that one. That would be 070723. Don't know what that means because it doesn't have a 5 or 6 in it, and those will be the years. Well, this one's a 1986, we know for sure from the serial number. So okay, everything inside looks good. So everything looks good inside. Now we're going to commence with the cleaning, but the first thing we do before that is invert it on the table, and we're going to go over all the little screws in the tuners to make sure that they are snug. So this is a little precision driver, Phillips. Neat part is the top turns so that you can put pressure on and still turn with the rest of the screw and get better pressure on it, especially with these small miniature screws because they are easily stripped. All of these are just snug enough. I can just turn them a little bit, which is fine. These are replacement tuners. I just put them on in the last couple of months. Let's see, it was early this year that I got this. I know there was still snow on the ground, but it was a fairly mild day. I remember the sun shining. Hey, I remembered I was trying to wash the car, so it must have been that kind of early in the spring. So we went around, made sure every one of those little screws are tight. We're good. Okay, the only other one, and there isn't one, is right in the bottom of the strap peg. Sometimes there's one there. Tighten it when you get to it because, well, ask me how I know. Now, the next thing we do is a good cleaning. Not a paid promotion. We use our spray cleaner here. Of course, use it on what I'm going to use is t-shirt material. Make sure you cut the hems and the seams off because the threads in the hems and seams are nylon and they're not good on finishes and that. It'd be like taking one of those green scratch pads to it, and you don't want to do that. So just recycle some old t-shirts. And always spray it on the rag, not the guitar. That way you don't end up with way too much. The thing bursts into flames, it bursts into flames in your hand, not on the guitar. So now we've made sure all of the tuners are tight. I'm going to go over the fretboard and try and clean up as much as we can. And then we'll see if it really needs an oiling after it dries. I wonder if wax would deaden any of those marks. I don't think I'm going to chance it. I want whoever that owns this to be able to see it as it is. Don't start hiding the flaws. And so looking over the fretboard, it doesn't seem to be needing any oiling. We've gone over this, we've polished these and rounded off the edges to make sure they're smooth, and they are really nice now. They were okay before, but they are really nice now. There's a little bit of wear on the fretboard. They seem to stain, the Yamaha seem to also stain the rosewood fretboard. I took my original and I took a razor blade and scraped it, and it came out a really nice rosewood. These all tend to be a little darker. I'm not overly not okay with it. I'm not overly a fan, I guess I would say. But at the same time, this is what they did. It deserves to be what it is. And so now we get out our right-handed nut. Correct? Yeah. And we are going to put it back in and take the left-handed nut out. Let's measure these two up against each other. Yes, the right-handed one is a little bit taller, so we will not need the extra spacer. And that way it will fit down into the groove better, like it did originally. So what we're gonna do is put a dab of white glue on the bottom there. You can see a bit of the wood that came off, so it should fit in pretty much the exact same spot. So what we're going to do is take a little dab of white glue, and we're just going to dab it in the middle, because what we want is for other people to get this here off easily if necessary. So I just took a little dab. I'm just going to put a bit in the middle there, because all this really has to do is just keep it from sliding anywhere. Make sure that it's level on both sides. See, we want it to be easily knocked out if it needs to come back off. So you don't crazy glue it end to end, because, well, then you're really going to chew it up getting it out. Letting it dry. Let me explain a bit about the Dove headstock. In 1985 and 86 they used this insignia, and then it was gone. They did use it in some later years of the 70 series, which was only sold in the domestic Japanese area. All the 4 series, like the 420, the 445, all that, those were for export. They were all made in Taiwan, but the 7 series, the 720, 740, those were all made for the Japanese domestic market, as were the 420, 430, 445, and that were all made for export around the world. So the left-handers never really got above the 20 series, like the 720, 420, that 820, that is all the ones that they use for left-handeds. And that's because they're not the base model, which would be the 10s and the 400, 700, the 710, 410. Those are the fairly basic guitar. 720 series, that is a one-up on the craftsmanship and the actual performance of the guitar. It's a better quality guitar. Once you get above that into the 440, 450, some of those changes, some of them are as well for quality build, but some of them are just the purfling around the headstock, you know, more the bling bling sort of thing that doesn't really appeal to me at all much, other than this one, because of course with it being the tobacco brown, it's a very nice finish on this. So, you think we're ready to string the baby up? I think so. So one of the hardest things to do as a right-hander, I find, is to string up a right-handed guitar, because I'm so used to doing it the other way that I always end up putting this fat string on the skinny, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so when you're doing the guitar, you get the pin set, go up. We want to go into the second spindle, so I'm going to just go up past the third spindle and cut it there, keeping hold of both sides so that the tail doesn't snap and fly across the room, because it's garbage and you want to be able to keep track of that. Then you want to put the string through the hole, and you want it to just kind of be level with the outside. You want to be able to feel it, but just, and then crank to the side. Remembering also, I don't believe I really have to tell you this, but I've seen it happen. All these strings come up from the inside and roll out. Inside and roll out. I know I shouldn't have to tell you that, but I've seen 3 guitars I bought in the last year that were strung backwards. Don't understand why, but it's on the end of the string to roll this way, not this way, this way, and it rolls down into the hole. You take the groove that is in the peg and make sure that it is pointed to the string itself, pushed in so far, and then at some point it's going to change where the pin keeps moving but the string does not. That's what you want. Crank and flip it up to the other end, where we go about 2 inches past the spindle that we want. Cut it there, holding on to both sides so that the tail doesn't fly across the room. Then we put the tail through the spindle to the point where it just sticks out. We don't want a big heavy bunch sticking out, but just enough that you can see it. It's pretty much level with the rest of everything. And then crank. As you're winding, go over the tail that's sticking out first. And then once you get the tail past, start rolling down into the headstock, so that when the crank comes around, that comes out the other side of the spindle, it goes over top, while the string you're winding goes underneath, and it rolls down into the headstock. That way you're going to have a little more of a break angle here at the nut, and will hold more solidly. And then repeat. And there we have a restrung right-handed guitar. Now we're going to bring it up to pretty much rough tune and double check some of the spacing here and all the measurements. Now is when we're going to do the setup on this. I know I usually do setups on old strings, but I had to restring it anyways, so we're going to hope it's fairly close and go from there. So we bring it to rough tune, like just because we're not really sure we're going to be leaving it here. Now we check yeah, that's like 2.5, 2.25, 2.25, 2, 175. So the bottom's good, but the top is way too high yet. So I think I might have put the saddle in backwards. Wondering if we should try that, or first off, let's take a look down the headstock, the neck, and the neck is pretty flat. So we don't want to mess with the truss rod. But let's first off go over every note and make sure we have no buzzing. Yeah, I like a little bit lower action, but this is not my guitar. Well, it is my guitar at the moment, but that's almost like 3 millimeters. That's way too much. Okay, we're going to do that. We're gonna reverse this here saddle and see if that's what I've done wrong. So with the reversed saddle, yeah, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. That's what it was. I had the saddle reversed. So it's going to take a little bit yet to get these strings stretched in. So I'm going to reef on them good and then just keep tuning until it doesn't work anymore. Not that it doesn't work, but tuning doesn't become necessary. So there we go. Right-handed guitar again. So keep an eye out. Might see it on Facebook. Thanks for watching. Please share, like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Tell me what I did right, did wrong. I know I do things wrong because I am not a luthier. I'm just an old guy with too much time on my hands. And with that, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.